From all things in the industry, I think the margins are the least thing that I'm worried about.
Base44 is the story of one entrepreneur who went from an idea to millions in revenue and selling to Wix for $80 million. Today, Maor joins me in the hot seat.
We're taking into consideration that the prices of model will go down towards zero. Me personally, I don't believe we'll hit a speed bump. I don't think also we'll hit the wall with like movements of LLMs. Even with existing models, we're only scratching the surface of economic value that you can create. If one person team can get sold for $80 million without people, it means that you'll be able to do a lot more stuff with less people.
Ready to go? Maor, it is great to have you on the show, dude. I've been so looking forward to this one. I'm a fan of Base44. What a freaking journey. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm a fan of 20VC.
Dude, that's very, very kind. Listen, ego flattery will get you everywhere, and I'm very susceptible to it. I was chatting to Michael Eisenberg before this show, and he said, dude, you've got to start with like acquired for like 80 million bucks. Why did you decide to sell before we get to anything else?
So, I started Base44 as a bootstrap business after doing a very capital-heavy one, which we'll probably get to in a bit. And it started, honestly, just for fun. I wanted to get back to coding. I felt like everything in the software industry was changing. Love the fact that like with LLMs now you can do so much more. And so it started just for fun. And then the traction was insane. And I started getting to like, 10,000 users, 100,000 users, and like the business was very profitable. And so I stood in this junction of either I'm continuing doing this alone bootstrap thing, which I might get eaten by companies that are raising like shit ton of money, or I should raise a lot of funds and go very aggressive and try to build this on my own. And the third one is like get into a company that could be like a parent company, and try to find something that is like can harmonize with the business and actually push it forward. So I remember when I started having the conversations with Wix, I was very worried and I was like, I'm not going to sell. And I remember telling Avishai, like the CEO of Wix, I was telling him, yeah, if Cursor was sold to Microsoft, probably there won't be any Cursor today. The fact that they were independent and they could build the business by themselves how they wanted without kind of like the corporate stuff has gotten them through. And then we had many late night chats where one understood that Wix, for a lot of reasons that many who know Wix could understand, and I'm happy to tell about, is a perfect match because we're targeting the same audience. It's the same spirit. The marketing team is the absolute, in my opinion, in my very not objective eyes, is the best in the market. They're just aggressive, they're creative, they're absolutely awesome. And if we can structure it in a way where the company itself, the product team, stays lean, small, and startup-like, but all the other stuff, we can benefit from the monster that is Wix. For example, the support and customer care, the marketing stuff, the thing that you don't really want to build, like the legal and operation stuff, then this could be a lot of fun. And we structured a great deal. And I think to me it was like, okay, we have a shot at actually building something that matters. And so I said, for an actual shot of taking this from this low few 100,000 users to something that might, if we work hard throughout the years, actually move the needle for a lot of people, that might actually be a thing that people speak about as, hey, this actually made an impact on the world. It was either I raise a lot of money and a lot of funding, or I go and join Wix. That basically triples my chances at actually building something special.
Today, Base44 has like continued to thrive and is now over 100 million in revenue. It's done so well post-acquisition. Everyone's going, God, does he regret selling now? When you look at how fast it's grown and to over 100 million in revenue, do you regret selling so soon?
Absolutely not, for all kinds of reasons. First, I can comment on the revenue stuff and public company and so on. But one, we structured the deal in a way that even financially, I'm compensated for additional revenues and targets and milestones we're hitting. And second, this was the whole point. Like, I felt like in my eyes, this is going to be the largest category in software industry. Because a lot of like existing categories that we're familiar with, CRM and support systems and task management and project management, stuff like that, are going to fold into the vibe coding category. And there would be a time, it might be in a few months, it might be in a few years, where it will be easier to build your own Salesforce type of CRM than to actually buy a license to something off the shelf. And the whole point with partnering with Wix is let's take a shot at building something that would be huge. And I think without it, my chances would be really, really small.
With the greatest of respects, that's wrong. Dude, you're not going to have people build their own Salesforce CRMs on the whole. Maybe a tiny, tiny portion, or build your own intercoms or Sierras or Decagons, and then do maintenance and updates. Are you serious?
I honestly think so. It might be not as like the current way that we think about vibe coding, where you prompt like, hey, build a CRM for me, and then you get a fully fledged all features inside. It might be that software becomes more liquid. And so maybe you have a starting point, maybe you have templates, maybe you have like open source projects that people can take and then vibe code their own features and say, okay, this is great. Now I want this version in Arabic from right to left, and I want on every lead to be able to add my own pictures of the lead or whatever, and then basically convert and transform the software to something that's more what they want. But I think the current model of one size fits all doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not that everyone will move there. It's not that enterprises, it's going to take a lot of time, but it makes so much sense for the buyer. Think about it as like the software is going to be theirs. The code will be theirs. They will not need to share their data with other software vendors and be locked in like in whatever. They could adapt it and create a leaner version that's way more customized to their needs. I think I'll go even one step further. I think every software company that needs implementers, right? There's like a Salesforce implementer or whatever. Maybe in a decade from now, is not going to make it. Because software, and again, like a year, if you take a year back, then yeah, vibe coding wasn't even a thing. And building software wasn't even a thing. And maybe it was like a nice toy thing. Maybe you could build like a task management, small kind of software. Maybe you could build a nice website. In a year or two, you'll get to a place where a lot of the current organizational tools that companies are using, you could build your own version or customize your own version, and it would make so much more sense to you as a buyer. The code will be yours, the data will be yours. You'll be able to adapt it to your needs. There's no one size fits all. There's no like feature bloat. When you buy today like a task management, software, it has so many features that you don't really need.
Do you think small businesses give a shit about that? Give a shit about actually owning their own data, owning their own code? If you're a small coffee shop or coffee chain or restaurant chain or legal and accounting firm, if that's the bread and butter of Wix's business,
yeah,
do they need it?
Not necessarily the code and data, but they need something that's simpler and more customized to their needs. You know how I started Base44? My back then girlfriend, now wife, has a small business. She needed a CRM and she needed some systems for her small business. She's a tattoo artist and she teaches like arts and stuff like that. And we tried building that with the former version of and I'm not going to name the software vendor or two software vendors that you try doing that with like the drag and drop and the super customized, like build your own tables or CRM or whatever. And it was hell on earth. And I'm like a software person, right? I should know how to do that. But like just configuring that and then making it so that it supports her process of how she processes leads and customers and whatever. And she's like, oh, this is insane. I was like, I know that like an LLM can code something leaner and way better for what she needs, exactly what she needs. And you're not going to have like this entire features and enterprise features and team management stuff and whatever settings and stuff like that, which is going to be super simple for what she needs and could adapt to her needs. And I was like, I know LLMs can do that. I just need to provide LLMs with like the right setup, right? They can write the code, but she will need a database to keep the leads, and she will need some integrations with like sending emails and stuff like that. And that's why I started Base44, and exactly for that. And so I think small businesses specifically would want to build something leaner and more customized to what they need, something that they can understand, something that they can adapt. And bloated SaaS of the pre-2022 era, it's going to be harder for people to use.
Dude, will Salesforce be bigger or smaller in 10 years' time?
It might. And Mark Benioff is a smart person, and I'm sure that also in the company is incredible, so they might adapt. But I think generally from this category, those companies would be smaller. If not, like, some of them would be eliminated.
Which would you say is most likely to be eliminated?
Smaller CRM companies. Every software that's basically front-end on top of a database with some team features and some integrations, and does not have a moat. And I think Salesforce is so big and so massive that this is one of their moats. Like, they can make big bets and like move a lot of stuff and like go in many different directions when we all try to adapt in this AI era. But smaller players, I think, would be eliminated.
You said the word moat there. It's often a criticism of this category. You know, I've had the founders of Salesforce, Benioff, Atlassian, Mike Cannon-Brookes, Cloudflare, Matt Prince, Dylan Field from Figma, even Carl Pei, the founder of Nothing, the phone company, has created their own Base44 equivalent. And everyone says this is a business with no moats, and you see that in the ability for these people to spin up products in 3 months.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that statement?
I think it's relatively easy to create a vibe coding tool. It's very, very, very hard to create a platform that could help people build products they'll actually use, that are functional, that are complex enough for real-world use cases. And for that, you need many layers of integrations. You need to adapt and tune the agent to handle very complex projects. I think some applications in Base44 are like millions of lines of code. And that's eventually the customers and users that you care about, because those are the ones that will go beyond the hype of, hey, look, I've built this Monday.com clone with a single prompt. No, you didn't. Like, it's going to take you like hundreds or thousands of prompts to get to something that you're going to use day to day. And I think the mode in the category is being able to get there. And that's like layers of integrations and heavy lifting and building a compute. You're almost building like a small cloud, because you want to give the LLM the ability to have access to databases and have user management and to have built-in integrations and the ability to run scheduled tasks, because that's what real software does. And you want to have the LLM kind of like access to many cloud services and integrations. And so you're building an entire ecosystem in this platform. But yeah, to build a vibe coding tool that can build some websites or a front end that could connect to some APIs, I think it's super easy to do nowadays.
Does that not take away a lot of the low end of the market, though? If you think about that, essentially, if it's able to build like good front end, good landing pages, good simple projects, then it basically leaves the higher end champion users for the more complex service providers like you. Does that not eat away and cannibalize a lot of the market?
I think it depends on like what you call the market. So like for Base44, we almost don't focus on websites, which also goes very well with Wix, right? Because Wix does a lot of like websites and marketing websites and e-commerce websites and stuff like that. For Base44, our laser focus our core focus from day one is the complex applications, the functionality. So if you're looking to build like a a marketing platform where AI agents can generate content constantly and read your LinkedIn posts and see your, the traction that you're getting, and from there try to digest and then fill in your calendar different like functional, complex stuff that you use day to day. And I think early on, the vibe coding category was focused a lot and still is to some degree on like front end and landing pages, where many use cases were around like websites or e-commerce websites and stuff like that. I think this will get commoditized for the category. There's still a lot to do when you're looking like there's SEO and domain management. And like if you're building an e-commerce, that's like a complex business. You want to integrate with like a full backend, like what Wix has or Shopify or whatever. But for the functional stuff and the complex applications, the organizational applications, the personal applications, the fully fledged SaaS platforms that people are building, I think they won't get commoditized. And I think that's not the long market. Also, I think that's the more profitable use cases for tools like ours, because at some point, okay, you're building a website, let's say a nice website for your VC firm or whatever. At some point, it's like, okay, this looks pretty. That's it. I'm not going to prompt anymore. And a lot of like the business model of this category is around like the credits for prompting. And so at some point you're like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I have this front end. It probably costs like not a lot to host it somewhere. And I think the more profitable stuff with the higher margin and the more value would be in building the complex applications that you'll use day to day.
When you map out this market in like 3 to 5 years' time, can you help me understand what that looks like? Because you've got, in my mind, like 3 different entry points. You've got the Base44’s, the Lovables, and the Replets in one. You've got the Figmas, the Cloudflares, the Atlassians, the Salesforces in like the incumbent insertion point. And then you've got the Canvas on the other kind of more consumer end. I'd probably put Figma in there with Canva. What happens here? And then, sorry, you've also got the Cognitions and the Cursors and the Pro Tools there. Do the Pro Tools come down and eat your business? Do you go up and eat their business? What happens there?
It's a very good question. I'll start with like what you categorize as incumbents, but I'll actually call it like the different software categories that exist. So like let's take a Salesforce or a Monday.com, for example. I think a lot of those tools will build built-in vibe coding tools inside their platform. You can see that like with Monday Vibe, which is a tool they've built on top of like the Monday.com infrastructure of like boards and like the database behind the scenes and the user management, roles, permissions, and so on. And this is what I said when I meant software is going to become more liquid. So like, I don't know if Salesforce is planning to do that, but I'm assuming that at some point, like you'll be able to create your own user interface for Salesforce. And Salesforce would become like this system of record where like you can create the UI that you want and how you want to look at a lead or contact or account or whatever. And I think a lot of tools are going to do that because this is basically taking kind of like instead of like configuring different things and building different features, it would allow a lot of extensibility to existing products. And so you start seeing that, and you see also like Microsoft building like some vibe coding tools on top of like the Office and whatever. And so like I can see a future where a lot of the existing SaaS tools and SaaS products have a built-in vibe coding, customizes the software to your needs capability. I think it's an interesting take on what's going to happen with the pro players versus the very consumerish / AI app builder or visual AI app builder, where I think for Base44, for example, from day one, the objective was that you won't need to see a line of code. And that for a lot of our users, like seeing code actually, like, I wouldn't say terrifies them, but like it's not what they want to do, right? You're a lawyer and you want to like create some system for your law firm or software. Like there's no need for you to see code, and you should be able to customize and do whatever you want just by prompting it. I think the Cursor and the Windsurf or Cognition of the world are doing a fantastic job with focusing on the existing dev community and kind of like target audience. And there's a lot to do there because it's going to take a lot of time for tools like and platforms like Base44 and the Bolt and Lovables of the world to get to a place where you can build like the existing whatever X percentage of software that we cannot build today. So I'll give an example. It's very hard to build a firewall today in Base44, right? Something that will sit on your computer, will be very like in terms of performance, will be very native on your computer, will like send logs to a centralized server that will analyze it for the organization. So like there's existing software products where the AI app builders like Base44 is going to take a lot of time to get to, if any. And I think that's also a lot of like how we measure internally. And one of our objectives is like, what's the percentage of software that we can build today and how we push it forward? So like, I'll give another example. We're working now on allowing applications inside Base44 to use scheduled tasks. So maybe you want to build something and like every Monday morning, send an email to all your users with a summary of what they did inside your app or whatever. Or you built a personal assistant and you've integrated WhatsApp and you want to tell the personal assistant, hey, remind me in 2 days to pick up the kids or whatever. And so this obviously doesn't exist today. And building this basically pushes slightly more the type of software that you can build with Base44. And we've built like this built-in capability to build AI agents, and we've integrated it with WhatsApp and Slack and whatever. So now you can actually build bots, not only applications. And so we constantly measure kind of like the type of software that we can build. And I think the Cursor and Cognition of the world are doing a terrific job with working on like this enormous software projects, and especially like enterprise projects and like large, very complex software that needs a lot of backend services and it's like anyway, very complex applications. Like we want to build a firewall, or we internally obviously use Cursor to build our own backend. I don't know where the market will be headed. I'm sure that they will go a bit up market and bring in some of like the visual builder that and kind of like them for the less complex users. And I'm sure that the R layer, like the Base44, the Bold, the Lovables of the world will go a bit down with like the types of software that you'll be able to build, and the software that you weren't able to build like a year ago or a few months ago, you'll be able to build in a few months. It's going to be interesting. But this is a huge market. It's like it's a lot of it is like depends on like what's that type. Like you cannot build for any type of user. So either you serve the developer where they want to see the code and they want to edit it and they want to bring like terminal stuff and you want to run it on their computers, or you serve the non-technical user, which is like completely different.
Maor, you have Lovable, you have Replit, and you have Bolt. Who's the best and who's the worst?
Tough question. I think Replit is more technical and started as a dev tool. And I think for developers, they're doing a good job. For the semi-developers, I'll call it this way. The developers, probably the hardcore ones, will go to Cursor. I wouldn't say who's the worst.
Which one do you not worry about?
I'm not worried about those three.
Wow. Who are you worried about?
I think more about market dynamics and how things will turn out to be with the model providers. I think my theory and thesis is that there's always going to be huge advantage to the folks who are playing with multiple model providers. But if at one point, one of the model providers will just win the market by a wide margin, then the next logical thing is to conquer the vibe coding market, because this, again, in my non-objective eyes, will be the largest software category. As long as there's like a fight and there's a race, then we're positioned to control a very large share of the market and bring in a better solution to the market.
Who do you think's more likely to do that? Codex or Claude Code?
Google. By far. They have the compute. They're moving very fast. If Gemini at some point wins the race, like literally wins the race, then they have the entire stack, including like Google Cloud and whatever they need, and they have the data and whatever, and integrations and Google Suite and so on, to build an incredible empire. I'm hoping for a tough race, and it looks like that right now. And it's, by the way, an insane market dynamics, because like obviously spending a lot on AI, and like in a split second, like you change one string in the code and you move like millions in spend to a different provider, and it's like and it bounces back. It depends on like who provides like the best model and the best whatever cost and throughput and so on.
Can you give me an example of that?
Let's say on the coding space, there's like, you see Claude comes out with like Claude 4 and Sonnet 4. And you're like, perfect, let's use that. And before that, we were like doing a split between Sonnet and Gemini. And then OpenAI comes up with GPT-5. And you try to figure out for all of those folks, by the way, it's like, it's not necessarily that there's like a better model that you move your entire workload, but you see that there's like places where the model's doing better. So for the first prompt, Sonnet's like the best designer and knows how to structure it, and was really good with like writing a project from scratch. But then what we found is that like GPT-5, and especially the thinking and the pro versions, like really good at solving hard bugs. And so you move a lot of workload, especially on the complex applications and very large context API calls, to OpenAI. And so when doing that, like you're literally moving hundreds of thousands of spend, which is like just like the simplest change. And if now, I don't know, but maybe Gemini 3 is going to be better than anything else, which is what people is nowadays saying, then we're going to move a lot of spend and a lot of workload overnight to a different vendor. And that's like an insane market dynamics to me.
I get you. It's an insane market dynamic because everyone compares the LLM market to the cloud market in terms of it being a commodity, but actually a mega market that will be phenomenal for the providers with a couple of core winners. But what you just said there is completely different, which is an ease of switching that you would never have in a cloud market. You do not switch your cloud provider with a line of code in seconds multiple times a month.
No.
How do you think about that analogy from LLM provider to cloud provider, given what you just said?
Yeah. You do not switch a cloud provider. That's very hard to do, right? My previous company, we tried doing that. It was so painful. If I've known how tough it's going to be when we started that for like a year-long process, probably wouldn't do it. For the LLMs, it's insane how easy it is. I think they're still like, so I think what we see for the model providers is that they're building multiple tools for multiple levels in the value chain. So you see all of them having this CLI coding tool, and all of them having this very high-end or end-user focused chat product like Gemini and ChatGPT and so on. You start seeing them bringing in, so Gemini is now everywhere in my Gmail, in like a lot of like workflows and like building automation. And so you start seeing them go up the market of software and trying to, and bringing their tools and their model basically to drive consumption all across the stack. Or if you look like a year ago, it was mostly like you could consume it either in an API or you could consume it in like this end user type of chat. I don't know. It's going to be super interesting. It's just that to me, it's crazy. The fact that's like, let's say one of them kind of like storms ahead for like 6 months, right? Something that haven't happened before. But it's like literally the best model for like 6 months ahead. How will they be able to handle the fact it's like, so let's say someone comes out now with a better, stronger, and cheaper model than Sonnet 4.5. And it stays like that for Anthropic for like the next 6 months. Like what I'm assuming, I don't really know, but it's like, what happens to Anthropic's revenue? Right? It's like overnight, okay, you switch from all the cursors and the Claude codes, let's say you switch to Gemini or whatever, GPT 5.5 or whatever. This is like such a fast decline but also they had such a fast ascend. I don't know. It's going to be crazy. But I don't think I have the right answers to how this market is going to play out. Obviously, we're all hoping that this is going to stay a very competitive market where prices will go down. I think also when we're making like strategic bets on what we're going to optimize and what's not, and it's very strange to manage a business like Base44 because in some places there's like you see things that you need to either optimize or build, but you're taking a decision not to do that because you know that future versions of the models are going to take care of that. So one of like the thing that Vishai and I are speaking of when we're speaking strategy is like we're taking into consideration that the prices of model will go down towards zero, at least for tools like Base44, for platforms like Base44. And so this is like a strategic decision where you're saying, okay, I could optimize some, and we're doing that, but like either we're investing a lot of people right now to optimize the costs, or we're taking into consideration just the prices of the models are just going down and down and down.
One of my core questions that I want to understand is the margin structure. And when you look at today, every dollar that comes in, what percent of that dollar goes back to an LLM provider?
Depends on the timing. The exact number I cannot say because we're a public company. Even though I miss that a lot to kind of like share
In
that.
the nicest way, dude, no one shares that. Like, why? Does no one, like, you again, educate me. Does no one share it because it's so bad?
No, it's also very decision dependent. So like you can change it from like a low margin to a very high margin. And just one decision is just deciding on how great of a service you want to give your users. I think what will happen eventually with all coding agents is that the cheaper open source models are getting way better. You always want to play with like the strongest models, but what will happen and what we're kind of like looking at it internally is like building this switch or proxy where when you get a prompt from a user, maybe the prompt is so simple that it doesn't even matter like what model you're getting. It's like change the color of the button from blue to red, right? I don't really need to use like the heavy Sonnet maximum thinking, whatever, pay a lot for that, right? I can kind of like forward this request to a smaller, cheaper model. And this will also be like a way better experience to the user because it's going to be so much faster than bringing kind of like the heavy guns of like the frontier models. And I think doing that and the more the smaller or open source models are able to take a larger percentage of the requests and prompts, obviously margin's going to improve drastically. I don't think it's bad. That's my I don't think current margins are bad, but I think they're going to get way better.
Today they suck. And everyone always says, oh, but we're going to have like model selection, as exactly as you said there, which is we'll be able to do intelligent routing on models. And I'm like, okay.
Depends on like
I hope so, Maor.
Yeah,
I hope so.
we all do. I think it depends on kind of like the product and the flow that you're building. So one of the players that you mentioned, for example, is doing a really good job with autonomy. Where kind of like you prompt something and then they go and they run for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes too, and they have like this coding agent.
This is Replic's agent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, first, what if my prompt, like, what if I kind of like didn't really mean what I just prompted, or like, okay, it went and built like this fully, I'm just a free user and I just burnt like a lot of cash right now on like coding and testing and whatever. And so I think it depends on like the level of autonomy you want to give and kind of like how fast iterations you're giving out to users. I don't know the margins, but like I'm saying, you could burn a lot by not understanding what the user actually wants. But from all things in the industry, I think the margins are the least thing that I'm worried about.
The most thing you're worried about is Google coming in?
Not really, but like the competitive landscape. The pace is insane. Like for us, every feature that we put out, we know that's going to take either a few weeks or a few months for a competitor to copy, and we see that a lot.
How does that change? How does that change what you build? It's really interesting. I had, the founder of Fiverr, Misha, on the show from Israel too, and he said the time to copy is the single biggest difference in the last 2 years of software, where it used to be years, now it's weeks.
Yeah.
How does that change what you build or how you think?
You take big bets on things that are, if you can find those, that are substantial to your users and will be really hard to copy. So I'll give you one example. The whole reasons for Base44's existence is the built-in backend. The fact that we built Base44 as a fully or vertically integrated platform, where for every application you already have a built-in database, user management, authentication, integrations, analytics, and so on. And the thing is that we didn't use a third-party provider like Supabase, which is what the rest of the industry is using, Supabase on Neon. And we've built that like built-in, and we've taken a very courageous kind of like step there, and there's still a lot more to build there. This is going to be very hard to replicate, and very hard to migrate your whatever millions of users from Supabase to a homegrown solution if one of the competitors try to do that. And I think this is a bet that we're deepening further and further and further. For other stuff, it's a game of velocity, of delight, of like taking the right UX decisions, and having the right taste, and just trying to be there before everyone else gets there. So there's like I think we started this, so 2 weeks ago, we came up with something called App Suggestions. Very small feature, which is very nice. Like after you prompt, it gives you like the next steps. Like, okay, now add a dashboard. Like it gives you kind of like suggestions to what to do in your app. It took maybe a few days for other competitors to copy that. But it's fine. It's like, that's the game that we're playing now.
What % of starting users finish the project?
It's a good question of what finishing means. And I don't think I have the answer for that. I don't think I have the right number for that.
Deployed application that works.
That's many, but that's not the right question. The right question is how many get the usage they want? How many get to actual usage? So many publish their apps, and their apps are fully functioning. At some point, you like battle test your agent so much to teach it how to query the database, and how for every, like you start categorizing the different flows and the different use cases that user prompted, and you make sure that you feed your agent with the right examples. So many get to like functioning applications. So this is like a saturated benchmark. The question is how many get to actual usage day to day. I don't have the right answer to that.
What metric is user success for you then? If there is this nuance and complexity with regards to like success of a user, internally, what is your metric for user success?
There's a couple. First, we measure the sentiment of the messages they send in the chat, which was also weird to me, but it turns out many people are like speaking with the chat as they would to a human. They either tell it, okay, fantastic job, this is exactly what I wanted when I was like asking for this feature, or they curse a lot, like this is not what I wanted, oh, you deleted this button and I wanted this and I wanted that. And so we have this metric that we literally measure on a minute-to-minute basis of like how many of the prompts, because nowadays we get like tens of thousands of prompts like a minute or whatever in tandem. And so we measure the sentiment, and that's how we know our coding agent does what it's being asked to. And you see kind of like how if we release an upgrade, you see kind of like the negativity metric kind of like goes down, or if when we jump from Sonnet 4 to Sonnet 4.5, you see a major improvement there. So this is one thing that we measure. And again, even the metrics changed a lot with the business like Base44, because when we started, it was mostly around bugs, right? How many times like the model messes up something and the application doesn't work, or there's like bugs and like hard things that like break your app. Nowadays, it's not easy to create bugs in your app. The LLMs are really smart. The infrastructure is battle tested. So it's more about, does the agent actually does what the user is asking of it? Does it make the right change without making additional changes or messing up other features? And you can see, for example, that again, so even if I give the example of like scheduled tasks. So maybe the user asks, hey, I want you to send me a daily email with like reminders. And then the coding agent says, I cannot do that. I don't have the right infrastructure to do scheduled tasks. And so when we add scheduled tasks, we should see a few numbers, like a few percentages kind of like of this metric improves.
Going back to the elements on margin, I had Ev Randall, who's the new GP at Benchmark, and he said, Harry, you're thinking about this wrong. We need less of a focus on margin, and we need more of a focus on gross dollars per customer. In other words, expanding the spend of the customer, not the actual margin on a lower spend. Do you agree with that, or do you actually think, no, we'll revert back to a margin-optimized world where we have open source models as we discussed?
I think 100% right now the game for our category is growth, and capturing as much of this insanely big market. There's almost no person that shouldn't be a user for a platform like Base44, and so obviously it's like growing, not necessarily the spend of every customer to as many customers as possible. The spend's going to come down as models would be cheaper. So like, I don't think it's like, let's try and grab as many dollars from the customer as possible. So I'd say margins are always important. Keep your business kind of like, there's one thing I learned in Base44 is like, when you lean and you're a sane business and you're like a good business, that does really good to all other aspects of the business. And it's not something that I understood in my previous company, which wasn't like I made fatal mistakes, but it's like we were very capital heavy. And there's something by creating a business that makes sense and is healthy in margins and retention and the spend and whatever, that allows you to grow later on in a sustainable way without at some point hitting the brakes and saying, oh, well, like nothing makes sense in our margins or whatever. And so I'd say margins is something you should constantly look at while knowing or while planning ahead and taking into consideration that the model related stuff, which is like 99% of the spend or 90% of the spend, is changing drastically and aggressively every few months.
When you have that change in spend, you have like a less certain revenue. As we said earlier, the transience of spend leads to an Anthropic could skyrocket or could not, depending on where you shift spend. Can you advise me, honestly, dude? I'm an early stage investor. I invest in AI apps today, and everyone is posting insane fucking numbers. Like, you look at yours and it's like 100 million, your Lovables and your Replits, like 200 million. How much weight should I, as an early stage investor, place on revenue today?
That's a very good question, which also me as myself as an investor, like I'm asking myself. So obviously like the metrics today is like, are like different, right? When I started my previous company, we got to like $2 million in ARR. I think it was like a year and a half, and everybody were cheering and was saying like, this is insane, and like whatever. Nowadays it's like, if you can show the hockey stick of how fast you got to $10 million or $20 million, everything changes. I think it depends on like the model of the company you're investing in. For me, it's like smaller checks into very healthy businesses. So the thing that I look at the most, okay, fast revenue growth, obviously that's what you want to see. This is like the most exciting, but there are two things. One, healthy business is like, how likely is this business to get eaten by other players, the model providers or whatever. And the second, which is very much related, is a vertically integrated business. So here's something really cool that we're looking at right now. So Cursor came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago, or maybe a few weeks ago, with their own model, right? Composer. And this is like a nice way to like think about strategy of those types of businesses. So think about Cursor, right? I don't know how the margins were. Let's take the kind of like the not optimistic approach of saying margins were bad, right? They were paying so much to the other model providers or whatever. So this is like an insane strategy. It's like grow as fast as you can, get to like insane distribution. Like every developer that reads through Twitter like probably installs Cursor, and then at some point bring in your very efficient model that you trained that is now fast and start moving people from the very expensive low margin models into your own model, which is likely to be high margin. And then again, overnight, your margins get tremendously better, but you've grown fast as hell. And now you have the distribution. Now you can optimize margins because again, like the margins for the models are like, that's something that's easy to, if you decide, not easy, but it's very doable to change drastically overnight. And I think this is a really interesting strategy that we're also thinking internally is go as fast as you can with the frontier models. At some point, open source becomes really a viable option to maybe fine tune on the billions, almost trillions lines of code that we have inside Base44. And then have this very interesting margin take where for some of the prompts you forward to the fast, high margin, great model. Users really enjoy it because those models are going to be way faster than the Sonnet 4.4 heavy models. So this is an interesting take when you think about vertically integrated applications. There's some applications today that I think are growing very, very fast that are going to have a harder time keeping it this way. I don't remember the name of the company. There was this company that was very one of the earliest practical use cases for LLM. There was a marketing, they were generating content and they grew super fast. You probably remember them.
Jasper AI.
Yeah. Grew super fast. And the moat was just it was absolutely hard to create moat over there because it was clearly that there's okay, you only using LLMs. Right? For Base44 is an entire infrastructure. You build a mini cloud that allows applications to send emails, generate images, use other LLMs to deploy, to manage users and whatever. So you have something around LLMs that makes sense to have enough of a business. When I'm investing nowadays, I'm thinking, can this business, if not today, be at some point in the future, vertically integrated, self-sustainable, maybe what Cursor will turn out to be at some point.
Can we just go through it in a helpful way? You said 3 elements there. Revenue growth. What revenue growth is exciting then? Is it just the highest? Is it, I need to see 1 to 10 in the first year?
Which type of business? If you're building a SaaS, yeah, it's going to be 0 to 10. That's going to be exciting.
0 to 10 in a year for you means
I think this is insane. 0 to 10 is an insane growth for any SaaS.
Well, I mean, honestly, now it's good, but there's quite a lot that do 0 to 10. I mean, that's a lot.
That's insane. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be on the exciting piece. I'm not when I'm looking to invest, I'm not necessarily going to say, okay, the company has to do 0 to 10.
How do you determine if they're going to be eaten by models? What is the question or criteria that will help you get comfortable with that?
If most of the value is on the way they prompt the application for a certain thing, they've built, let's say, a photo editor. And so there's not a lot of features in a photo edit, an AI based, you feed a picture and say, okay, make me, I don't know, make me prettier or whatever. And if a lot of that's going to be the UX in the prompt, I don't think that's going to be a healthy business for the next decade. I don't think there's a lot of moat. If you're building a lot of infrastructure or the company itself is vertically integrated, I think that's a very interesting take. So, you could nowadays build a competitor to Harvey and Spellbook that would kind of teach some LLM better way on how to do law or whatever, or you could build a law firm. And I think building a law firm is going to be very, very, very interesting because this is not something that a model provider would do or any other kind of sane software entrepreneur that wants to do just software. And I think there's an opportunity today to build very healthy, new age, vertically integrated businesses. And it could be, again, a law firm. It could be buying a hospital, basically optimizing everything on every layer and making it AI native, and maybe in a few years being the first ones to introduce robots into as surgeons or whatever. And I think nowadays there's opportunities all across the fund, in different categories, software, not software, whatever, to build vertically integrated companies. And I think if your company is just about like how you're prompting an LLM, and maybe you're doing a better job with like tuning it to whatever legal needs or finance need or whatever, and the infrastructure that you have below it is not very complex, it's going to be hard to have a moat.
Are you angel investing today?
Yeah, or starting to.
Do you enjoy it?
Very much. Was scary at first, but nowadays it's so much fun. Also, it's kind of like you have a chance to work with like incredible founders and be kind of like at this huge platform shift, probably the biggest ones that we're facing, and to think with them, what the hell are we going to do? But also to think with them is like, what are the new opportunities that are going to open up? They're just like building. So coming back to this crazy idea I said earlier, like building a law firm like 5 years ago would seem like the most like bad idea that you can think of, right? Building a law firm, buying a hospital and optimizing it with AI or whatever, right? Building a new bank. I think today is like you have this huge platform shift. There's so many exciting discussions when you look at different industries of like thinking in 2 years from now, 4 years from now, like what's the craziest thing that we can think of? Like what should we aim for that's barely possible today or not possible today and should be possible in 2 to 4 years? And I think this is like an incredible way to think about angel investing and so much fun doing so. Very risky, but very, very fun.
Where do you think no one is investing today that everyone should be investing today? And where do you think everyone is investing today where they should not be investing?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think the not sexy industries, again, the finance, the restaurants, the whatever, the HMOs, the like actually having like entrepreneurs building that end to end is where people should be more like investing more into. I think a lot of people are investing nowadays to very fast growing kind of like a hockey stick revenue plotting startups, which is not where I think, unless you know a business or an industry very, very well, I think it's very hard for investors outside to understand if this is going to be with a moat or not. So a good example for that is I had the opportunity to invest in like this agent companies, right? Like the Manus, those folks.
Yeah.
I felt like I don't know the industry good enough to understand if at some point this would get commoditized by the model companies. And so this is like an area that I wouldn't invest in because I was like, okay, this is obviously dangerous. Like obviously the more that the capabilities that OpenAI built into ChatGPT and Google into Gemini, whatever, they're going to be they're going to have like serious and incredible agents. And I'm not sure this category, even if you get to like insane growth, like you can see the Manus and the other players, like they have this graphs that I think are even like go even more aggressive than our industry. I'm not sure that there's a lot behind it rather than like prompting and giving it tools that are for sure going to be part of like ChatGPT or the Gemini interface or whatever.
Michael Eisenberg said I had to ask you, make the case for how you beat Cursor.
When I started Base44 and I said, okay, I'm going to do this really for the non-technical people because at that point, and still do, most of the industry, if you wanted to, like most of the players in the market, if you wanted to build something really functional, you should have prompted like, hey, connect the backend, and then it will tell you, okay, bring the API key from Supabase and whatever. Things that like your mom and my mom wouldn't be able to do, right? And so I said, okay, let's build for the very non-technical folks. And then when doing so, obviously, like, and Base44 started getting a lot of traction. And obviously, like, we also got some developers and some technical people that said, give me the code. And like, you should invest in like a GitHub integration, allow me to edit files and whatever. And at some point, we also implemented that. But the more time passed, and the more the models got better, and the more like faster and whatever, there were less bugs, nobody wanted to see the code. And it was less important for people to actually be able to manually edit and change and whatever. And I think the direction, and again, that we're going to is like more and more and more percentages of like more and more types of software you'll be able to build inside Base44 that nobody wants to see code. I don't think it's like if you get to like this flow state where you're prompting with the AI and it's going to be super fast and it's going to be almost immediate. Every prompt, like you'll see that and it's going to change. I don't think you want to see the code, and I don't think you want to start saying, okay, you should look at these files and those models and like, like run those tests and whatever. And I think nowadays, for some and a growing part of software, even the most technical users would prefer building inside Base44 than to do that in Cursor. And they don't want to like now set up servers and databases and see the code and write tests and kind of like navigate through the files and whatever. And my guess is that this portion of software that you can build inside Base44 is going to grow. And I think obviously nowadays the experience, if you can build it inside Base44, you'd probably prefer to do it inside Base44 than in Cursor.
You can invest in Cursor at 29.3 billion, or you can invest in Cognition at 12. Which one would you do?
Probably Cognition. I think the notion of, software building as a category is going to grow insanely fast. I think our notion from the previous age of venture capital where a winner takes it all is wrong. And I think this category is going to be so big that everybody will take a niche at some point. And so I think Cognition is going to have like more room to grow. I also know that like throughout time, they'll be able to either replicate the most successful features inside. I think they have more room to grow, where betting on Cursor is like betting that it's a winner takes it all market.
Why don't you think it's a winner take all? And if it's not a winner take all, does that still work for a venture model? Our business is predicated on winner take all.
Not necessarily. Our business is predicated, or the venture capital business is predicated on huge returns, right? If you look at all of my competitors and on Base44, we're all growing insanely fast. And I think, at least I can say about Base44, but maybe the other players, like healthy businesses. Those are going to generate huge returns. They're all like fast growing businesses, and it's not a winner takes it all market, which is also, by the way, why I got into this market in the first place. It's like when I started, there was like Bolt and Lovable were like very viral on social media. And I was like, this is going to be such a big market. I feel like I have a very interesting take on this market with the backend built in, like focusing on functional and complex apps, where most of the other players were focusing back then on like front ends and maybe could connect the front end to Superbase, but it was very hard. I think we're at a different ball game where AI is going to generate so much value that markets are going to grow very, very fast. Obviously, some will get cannibalized, but markets are going to grow very, very fast. And the VC model is not necessarily a winner takes it all, but it's a huge returns type of market.
Do you think we will hit a speed bump? Everyone is very concerned about the AI bubble and not delivering on the revenue that we promise. Do you think that we will have a speed bump where there is a sign that we don't deliver the revenue that we promise?
I think the question is whether it's going to turn out to be a platform play, which means when building better models, the entire ecosystem and the market benefits from, or whether what will happen is like model companies are going to fight, their margins will get worse and worse because they will need to lower prices. Maybe at some point we'll need to figure out or crack something better in the LLMs because maybe we'll hit a wall. So this will be the bigger question, like is the value that nowadays GPT-5 to GPT-5.1 adding is only to OpenAI or for the rest of the industry or the rest of like the market. If it's for the rest of the market, I don't think we'll hit a speed bump. Me personally, I don't believe we'll hit a speed bump. I think even with existing models, I don't think also we'll hit like a wall with like the improvements of LLMs, but I think even with existing models, we're only scratching the surface of economic value that you can create if a one person team can get sold for $80 million, and building a viable business and healthy business and profitable business without people, it means that you'll be able to do a lot more stuff with very less people, and that companies will become more efficient, and that and as a result of that, every product that we buy is going to be better, is going to be cheaper. I think there's so much more to do, and this was like with the previous version of LLMs. I've seen what it takes to build a company that needed to raise or was very capital heavy, $130 million and like over 100 people. And I've seen now in the age of LLM how much better it is or easier to build a very lean company. I was one person. And I think this value is going to trickle down from enterprises becoming more efficient, many more startups because there's no technical barrier anymore, to eventually the consumer benefiting from all of those, from all this economic value is going to be created.
How many people are in Base 44 today?
No, I cannot say. 5 minutes before the conversation, they told me I cannot say numbers or number of people or whatever.
Really? I don't want to pry, but why is that?
I don't
Like
know.
just number of people.
I think they're waiting for like the investors updates. We'll
That's
go.
interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a good thing to have more or less. If I was a public company, I'd want to say more because it feels more secure to a less educated investor base that doesn't think about AI efficiency within dev teams.
I think the public markets nowadays are so fluctuating, and it's very hard to like you have to see consistent results. I don't think that the stock kind of like behaves the same way that like you see inside the business.
I don't understand, Mail. If you look at a Lovable at a reported $6 billion price on the latest round, or a Rapid at a 3 to 4, and I'm sure they'll raise it 6 soon because they kind of are mimetic in that way. Either they are grossly overvalued, or Wix is grossly undervalued. You have to take one of those views. Which one of those views is right?
My very not objective opinion is that Wix is very much undervalued today. If we've already spoken about this, there's also, put aside the fact of like product assets and moat, there's like a moat in being big, and there's a moat in having a marketing team and an organization with experience like ours. I'm not sure if Lovable or Replit is overvalued. I think to be able to say that, I need to look at the internals and the economics of those businesses. I don't really know those.
I'm sorry, do you not track them
I track the revenue and the things they publish, but we're focusing on just building a very and this is something that Wix taught me. Wix for many years was like the underdog of like other players. When I came into Wix, and I was like, hey, and those guys are doing this, and those guys are doing that, and they're publishing here, they're viral here, and they're copying our features and whatever. And like Wix's mindset is just like build a great product, find the right way to market it. Doesn't matter what others do. It's just like you see that purely in the business, in the metrics. You can see like we've released like the new agent, like the version of our agent, and like you can see the conversion goes up, and you can see that like the marketing team tests different things. Some of them didn't make any sense to me beforehand, and you can see kind of like the unit economics getting better. So one thing that Wix taught me is like focus on your business, focus on a great product. It's like there's so much noise out there. I remember like my first time, my first company, 40% of my mind was occupied with what competitors are doing. And oh no, and for me it was like hard to grasp that the market is so big. Right? It's like nobody cares. It's like as a category, you're currently capturing like 10%, 15%, 20%. Like it takes years and ages until you actually grow to like, there's so many people that could use Base 44. There's so many people that could use Replit and Lovable. It's like, focus on your business, obviously grow as fast as you can, but I don't think it's like I'm trying to sniff around what's the unit economics and margins and whatever.
Final one before we do a quick fire. Replit, Cursor, Cognition, all very Silicon Valley businesses. Are you helped or are you hurt by not being in Silicon Valley? Honestly.
I think the world is changing. With my previous company, I used to fly out every 2 weeks to Silicon Valley. because this is where things would happen.
Bleak.
Yeah, and tough. I'm not going to do that ever again. I don't think in any way our business is hurting. If anything, um, I think the war on talent is really tough in Silicon Valley. If you're playing the game of get funded as much as you can so that you can build for a lot of cash and conquer a lot of and that's your way of conquering most of the market, awesome. This is where you should be. I think for us also, Wix is a month of giving us their backs, and they have this deep pockets and they know what to do, and they that's my Silicon Valley, right? That's the backup that they need. And also you start to see, and I think, and I have a lot of great things to say about Lovable building it from Europe. I think the world's changing.
Listen, I want to do a quick fire with you. So I say a short statement, you give me your immediate thoughts. I had Mark Benioff, I had Vlad Tenev from Robinhood on the show. They said 50% of their code is written with AI. What will that be in 2 years?
95% or 100% for sure. It's you'll be prompting agents. I think for us, maybe 50% because they have legacy code and systems. For us, Base44 was built in the age of LLMs, and so I structured the repository in a way that's going to be very easy for LLMs to navigate through and to read the code. I think for us, it's already closer to 90%. It's mostly it's prompting agents.
Single biggest advice for someone non-technical wanting to build with these tools. I listen to you stay genuinely, dude, and I'm like, wow, I really want to build a tool that allows me to go through all my LinkedIn followers, find everyone who has a certain title that would suggest they're an LP, an investor in funds, categorize them and show them to me because they clearly have an interest in me already. I could outbound them and turn them into an LP in my funds. I don't know where to start. I'm intimidated, actually.
So first I'll say step 0 is the biggest hack is how you actually build something that later on you'll use or maybe be successful, which is exactly what you mentioned, is build something for your own problems. This is the biggest hack that I learned. This is the easiest way to get to get a software that's actually usable. And this is not something I wanna go back into doing something that's for a customer that I interview a lot and understand the pain points. It was so much fun building Base44 and so much easier when I had a use case in mind. I was I'm going to build for my partner, I'm going to build her a CRM, and I'm going to kind of iterate on this software and whatever until it hits the mark. For people starting out with tools like Base44, there's a mindset that you have. So one tip that I constantly give out is there's a mindset that you have to get into, which is Base44 is not really a person that's working for a week and getting back to you with hey, this is what I built. And so you have to get into a mindset that's very easy. It's very easy to revert or start from scratch. And so instead of going into building a PRD and then feeding it into Base44, build a first version that you know you're going to throw out. And for some people, it's emotionally hard to understand. They're going to throw out tens of thousands of lines of code. It's going to be okay, fine. But all you need is figure out the product stuff. Because once you have the product stuff, it's with a few prompts, you get to where you got to with hundreds of prompts or thousands of prompts. So iterations is everything. It's it's not anymore about planning ahead so that you'll save developer time. And very easily hitting the revert button when one feature you wanted and you played with is not something that, and you get to a point where you're saying, okay, wasn't really a good idea. It's iterate very fast and understand that you're not working with a human. Therefore, it's fine to try out different directions or to just give it a high level idea and see what it comes up with. And then from there iterate. And so you can start with the highest level of prompt, build something that will help me, I don't know, engage my audience in LinkedIn and see what the LLM does, because it will have ideas that it will implement inside application. And some of those ideas will say, oh, this is interesting. I didn't really thought about this. The fact that you can maybe generate, I don't know, reach outs, or that you can whatever, and see the things that you didn't like, throw those away, take it again, and then prompt it back and say, okay, build something that will engage my LinkedIn feature. One of the features that I really like is this and that, and then like build around that. And so the idea that you can throw away things that you don't like and start from scratch or revert or go back is very hard for people to grasp.
You made 80 million bucks with the sale. Well done. Does money make you happy?
I don't think money makes you happy. I think those two things, that money becomes really valuable. Three things. One is your time. I don't like fancy cars, so I didn't buy a car, but like nowadays I'm going with a taxi everywhere and it saves tremendous amounts of time. Or other stuff that I can pay instead of like doing or wasting my time on. And this is a lot of help in like personal stuff, especially if you're like busy people, you're entrepreneurs, and you want to be with your wife or family or whatever. So this is a huge benefit. Second is helping people you care about and helping causes that you care about, which is big, because at some points, like, there's not a big difference between doing X million dollars and 10X million dollars. It's more about like, okay, you can maybe with your family and stuff like that, you can support. And the third, and I'm assuming, is like you can use the money later on to build the bigger stuff. Or you have this war chest that you can say, okay, next thing I'm gonna do, or when I'm thinking about kind of like the what I'm gonna do in a decade from now, is like, okay, let's go to space, solve cancer, build robots or something like that. Because you can do that. You can take a riskier bet.
I just want a Gulf Stream, dude. Okay? Don't get all heavy on me. Fuck that. There's some things that get edited out. I leave it to the team to see whatever they keep. I mean, the joy is most interviewers, yeah, they make you look bad and they look really innocent themselves. I make myself look bad, so you look innocent. It's a much better deal for you.
There's I think one of my friends told me that there's like a saying where after I made the money, and we had this discussion among friends, and I was like, this doesn't really change your life, and my friends were like, you're using it wrong. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, obviously money makes you happier. Like, you should buy a jet ski. Have you ever seen someone sad on a jet ski? It's like nobody.
Oh, I agree. OpenAI at 500 billion or Anthropic at 360 billion. Which one would you rather be invested in?
Anthropic every day.
Why?
Moving faster, they correct something in coding. They're very focused on delivering value to B2B customers. They don't have the first mover advantage, but I think they have better models. And when I look at their trajectory, they're better positioned for growth.
You can add one person to the Base44 board. Who would you add, and what would you like to learn from them?
Wow, that's a good question. Jack Dorsey.
Why?
I think he's one of the most brilliant minds and founders, and you can see that consistently he builds things sometimes for just the sake of building. So you can see like some of like his latest pet projects, like this messaging protocol and like stuff like that. And I think this is a person that consistently like building Twitter, building Square, building other projects, like that's just a mindset of a builder that I think can add tremendous futuristic strategic thinking, while also I think that our DNA and the thing that we're trying to build in Base44 is like a builder mindset. And I think this is the ultimate, for me, the ultimate guy.
What thing or event did you sacrifice for work that with the benefit of hindsight you regret?
Not necessarily this time around, but in my previous company, I think I missed a lot of my 20s. And I think for the first few years, I sacrificed a lot of time with the family and friends, missing on many, like, this is like many, many different occasions and different memories. And I was so inexperienced that I was trying to compensate for my inexperience with overworking, which is fine. It's like got me to a good place eventually, but I sacrificed many things and many friends.
What thing are Frontier Labs completely delusional about?
Maybe the moat that they have.
They don't have what they think they have.
I don't know if how they're thinking about this, but it's like what's the end game for the race, right? It's like either it's not going to be one winner takes it all, and there's going to be like more and more companies getting into this market. There's going to be like the Chinese players that are now like changing the entire market dynamics. I think eventually it's like if like it takes one better model or lower price to drastically reduce your revenue, then I think, or at least they used to be delusional about this. I don't know if they used to be delusional about this. Maybe they always they were always planning to build kind of like up the stack. I think nowadays they're doing smart things. For example, on Topic, building Cloud Code SDK or Cloud Code. Like even if now Gemini 3 comes out and it's a better model than Claude and Sonnet, then still there's gonna be a huge number of people staying with Cloud Code because they're used to it and they build some things up the stack.
Penultimate one. You got married very recently. What's your biggest advice on partner selection?
It shouldn't be like this person completes me. It should be someone that is, I'm enjoying this at least so much, that is identical to you. My partner is in their own kind of like field, entrepreneur. She likes the same thing that I like. She's messy. She has ADHD like me. She likes to paint like me. This is so much fun picking someone that's like you, because as an entrepreneur, it's like you have to have sympathy for the person that's like missing day and night and is constantly working, and you have to understand deeply why they're doing that, and that's like a part of them as a person, same as it's a part of me as a person. And so I think having the same mindset is crucial. It's very, very hard to date a founder that's like deep into like building the company 0 to 1. And I think having a person and a partner that's like having the same mindset, that they're building something or they build something, is making it so much easier to empathize with.
Final one for you, my friend. You can go back to the night before you start Base 44 and you can say, Maor, you should know this. Future self has learnt this today. What do you go back and tell yourself that you wish you'd known when you started?
When I was by myself, it was scary as hell. I used to wake up every 2 hours at night just to check that the platform is up. And at some point, Base44 started growing really fast, and I was still by myself. And people started building like businesses and applications on top. And there was like, I remember this week when it started like really going up, and the infrastructure and the thing that they built didn't hold up. And so we had like there was like this week or 2 or 3 that they had like 4 incidents where the platform would go down, and people were like screaming and shouting at me as like, I trusted you and whatever. And I took it very, very hard. And it was like emotional, very, very hard. And I wish I could have told myself like, this is just going to be a bump in the road. Community is going to recover from that. And eventually it'll build like this is going to be sustainable. This is going to be great. Don't take the bumps in the road. Also, the consumer market is so much different. Like the emotional spectrum of the feedback that you get is so much wider than building a B2B SaaS, that you get like some very not too positive, not too negative comments. I think handling it better emotionally is important. I didn't know that.
Dude, I've so enjoyed this. It's a very free-flowing discussion. You've been amazingly receptive to put up with my romantic advice request, as well as my LLM routing requests. Thank you so much for being so good, dude. I've loved this.
This has been so much fun. Thank you for having me, Harry.